We are live. Hello and welcome to the Benefit of the Doud podcast. I am your host, Adam Doud, and joining me is co-host Cliff. What's up, Cliff?
Hello, feeling like I want a piece of fruit.
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah. Maybe you've already
maybe
had a bite of that fruit at this
uh,
point because
quite a few bites.
the logo
Or
suggests. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. If you look behind me, there's
Yeah, that's true.
quite a few of those.
That's
Mhm.
true. There are a few bitten fruit behind you. So we are here today. This is not a benefit. This is not a doubting Thomas. This is not a beyond a doubt. This is not really a. I guess this could be a when in doubt. We could call it that. When in doubt, ask the experts. I guess in this case we're the experts, because we are talking about Apple's Apple's event that they just had. Wonderlust was what it was called.
Mhm.
And they had some kind of like Thanos theme going with the logo for some reason, but nothing disintegrated and flew away except for the lightning jack, which we're going to talk about that. But yeah, I saw that little bug too. But anyway, so we just wanted to get together and kind of share some thoughts that we had about the Apple event and the new iPhone 15 and the Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2 is what they're
Oh, they actually
calling.
call them at the two? Okay.
Yep. So let's go in order of what they talked about on the show. And so Cliff and I are actually going to go and grab a beer while we play a 5-minute video about how sustainable we are. No, we're not going to do that.
Exactly.
That was a
This
really long look.
oh,
So what I want to say about that video was it was entertaining, but it was way too long.
it was.
Like, and it was fun. It was funny because they had an actor come in and play Mother Nature and Mother Nature's assistant, and they were talking about all their sustainability efforts. And I mean, man, it was fun. It was funny. It
I'll
was
admit I fast
pithy.
forwarded through it because I watched this after the event
Sure,
actually aired.
sure. I don't
And
know if pithy is the right word, but it was irreverent and it was funny. But it was a little bit too long. So
yeah.
that was just my quick take on that.
But I do feel like the um recycled materials, the earth-friendly nature of the things that they are doing, what was repeated throughout. I mean, it was a theme throughout the
Yeah.
event
Oh
with
yeah.
all the whether it was the packaging or the
And it kind of had to be.
materials. Yeah, after they spent that long on it, yeah, I guess so.
So, I mean, here's the thing. If you have an hour and a half long event and you're going to spend 10 minutes talking about your sustainability efforts, just doing quick math, you're at over 10% of your event is talking about your sustainability efforts. And by the way, we've already established on this podcast a long time ago that 10% is significant. So if you're
It
going to spend
is.
10% of your event talking about your sustainability efforts, that means you don't have a whole lot else to show off. And I mean, due respect, I mean, the iPhone at this point is at a position where everything's going to be iterative,
Right.
which is why I think I'm most excited about what they brought with the Apple Watch Series 9. They had an S9 chip with a built-in neural processor, which is cool, but they also brought a little tappy
Yeah,
with
yeah.
your fingers there. And what this is basically, there's a new gesture that you can use with your Apple Watch where you tap your thumb and your first finger. And I'm not using my watch hand. You can tap your thumb and your
Well,
first finger, and that will actually activate what they call the primary button on the screen. So if you are, I believe, like there's a way you could do that to activate Siri if you happen to be on the screen where you can activate Siri, or if you're on a phone call, you can do the double tappy to end the phone call, or if you're getting a phone call, you can do the double tappy to answer the phone call, etc., etc. Whatever it is, you can use that to activate like whatever button is biggest on the screen.
so apparently this as a gesture, from what I saw people say, existed before, but it's because of the neural processor that's actually part of the system on a chip in the watch. It can actually do it in real time on the watch itself instead of,
Right.
and so I guess they felt it was reliable enough now to where they made it more of a more of a feature of the watch, which I mean, it's
Yeah.
exciting. And things that drives me nuts is a screen, whether it's my smartwatch or my smartphone, if it's all smudgy and stuff. So anytime you don't have to touch it to interact with it, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I don't recall reading this anywhere else. But I seriously doubt I'm the only one who has noticed. But that same gesture, that tapping gesture, that's the same thing that you do to select something on the Vision Pro headset that they're coming
Yes.
out with. Which, by the way, I don't want to say that they kind of jumped the shark on that Vision Pro headset, but I had almost completely forgotten that that thing existed when the new Apple event rolled around and they started talking about like what you can do with the cameras on the iPhone to do the Vision Pro. I'm like, "Oh right, that's a thing. I forgot
Right.
about that." Because that was
Yeah.
one of those like, "Here's a new thing that we're showing off coming in 6 months." And it's like, "What?" Uh,
Yeah,
so
so
yeah.
there were a few times. Now they like you said, they did not mention this in the presentation for the Apple Watch, but I have seen speculation since the event that perhaps an Apple Watch could be used as a control
Yeah,
surface
that makes sense.
for the Vision Pro. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I do like the fact that they would start training you like baby steps for people who are, that are already into the Apple ecosystem because they're the people that are more likely to buy the Vision Pro when it comes out.
Right.
Training them with gestures like that, making it common, that makes a lot of sense, right? Even if the Apple Watch isn't ultimately,
Yeah.
part of that. But yeah, just real quick. Oh my gosh, I was chuckling inside when I was watching the 15 Pro slash Pro Max introduction when they started talking about the video components and then the spatial video, which is a really cool idea, but you won't be able to
Mhm.
experience it because the Vision Pro is. They're talking
Right.
about something that hasn't even shipped yet, and
Right.
Apple's
Very
really
true.
good about talking about a feature that they're going to include for something that they never actually follow through with. So we'll see if that actually happens
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
they said it was coming later this year as a feature, right? Like it
yeah.
didn't actually, it's not shipping with the phone. Anyhow, I know we were talking about the watch, but
Yeah, and the other cool thing about that gesture, and you were mentioning how they were training people for the Vision Pro. I don't know if it's so much training, but the consistency between
right.
devices is very Apple. The consistency of doing the same thing for the same, for the different form factors
Mhm.
to accomplish the same thing. It's a very Apple move. So I personally am very much a fan of it. They also brought that gesture to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which starts at it starts at like 699, I think. Which is that? Am I wrong, or is that cheaper than last year's? I thought last year's started at 900.
The Ultra 2 starts at 799, I believe.
Was it 799?
Mhm.
Okay, but I think I want to say it's cheaper than it was a year ago. I
If it
could
is,
very
it's
well
still
be
really
wrong about that.
expensive. That's all
Well,
I have to say about that.
it's still remarkably expensive, but they brought that same gesture to the Ultra, which I thought is a super smart move because the Ultra is designed for, adventurers and people who are going to be
Sure.
in positions where they won't necessarily be able to touch their watch when a
Right.
phone call comes in. Although I would argue if you can't afford to take the time to touch your watch, you probably shouldn't answer that call anyway. Um, but that's
This is
that's a
true.
different
I think you're right
conversation.
about that.
That's a different conversation. The other thing that I thought about this like while you were talking, and there was another thing about the Apple Watch that I wanted to bring up. They so Apple didn't bring a whole lot more to the Watch Series 9. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Is all the rumors suggest that the Apple Watch Series 10 is going to be the big redesign.
Mm,
So like it makes perfect sense that they brought they didn't bring a whole lot new to this one because
right.
they are very hard at work already working on the Series 10 and whatever that's going to bring. And I'm kind of guessing that might be a round watch face. We'll have to see. But yeah, so
Maybe a round face option.
yeah, it could be a round face option or something like that. The new Apple Watch is titanium, if I remember correctly. No,
The
maybe
the
I know
series
that.
the series 9?
Yeah,
I doubt it.
no.
But
Okay.
because typically you have the aluminum and then you have the stainless steel as options. I honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't pay that much attention to the Apple Watch reveal once they got past the gestures and things like that.
But
I
well,
wanted the meaty boys, the 15 stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, they kind of they brought up the Series 9. There were some new build materials that they brought into, like, the
Ah,
watch bands and stuff like that.
right.
Oh, I think that was what I was thinking of. I think the watch bands are all, like,
They're all
mostly
sustainable now,
recycled
right? Yes.
now.
I do
Yeah.
remember that, yes.
So, and, it was because of that, like, if I remember correctly, the event kind of went like, hi, we're Apple. Here's our new watch. The new
Mhm.
watch is doing a lot of environmental stuff. Then they brought in that way too long video about the environmental sustainability stuff. Then they kind of yada yada through that, which I'll be honest, my eyes were losing focus during most of that stuff. And then they went into the iPhone. So I think that's why it was a little
Yeah, it definitely was
yeah.
the sustainability stuff, and I don't wanna poo-poo the fact that they're doing that. I'm glad that
No, no,
I
it's
feel like
yeah.
they're leading the way, but it definitely was a, oh gosh, what's it called? Intermission moment for a lot of people, I think,
It kind of
that
was.
were
It kind of
watching it,
was.
yeah.
Like, because I was doing a lot of editing during that, because like a lot of our news
Mm,
writers were writing news posts about the Apple Watch and whatever. So I was doing a lot of editing there, and I kind of didn't mind that I was missing
right?
out. Oh, you know what? The other big thing that they brought up with the Apple Watch is the peak brightness. I think is up to 2,000 nits and 3,000 nits on the Apple Watch Ultra, which is
Gosh.
just like it's almost where is it?
Well, I
Um,
mean,
it's
those are
almost
all
infinity flashlight
right,
levels
right, right. Yeah,
of
exactly. I
brightness.
mean, that's peak brightness though, but I mean, still,
Yeah,
when you are talking about visibility outdoors, I mean, that's gonna be awesome.
yeah.
Although, I mean, I feel like the Apple Watch legibility outdoors, at least for the generations that I've seen and used, have been pretty awesome
Mhm.
as is. So
Oh,
just anything on top of that is good.
the other thing, the precision finding for the iPhone, they brought out UWB2,
Oh,
which
the
is
ultra
a
wideband stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
which works with your HomePod if you have a HomePod, I
I was
guess,
like,
but cool.
I mean,
Um,
that's it. In fact, I remember sending a Telegram message to you about that. I'm like, oh, good, it works with my HomePod that I don't own. But I like
cool, man. So no, but what it is
ultra wideband is cool though.
it gives you greater access.
Mm,
It gives you greater range. It gives you greater findability because now
right.
you can actually like. They were talking about how you can like find your phone if it's like shoved in between couch cushions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So it's just gonna be more accurate, and I think it's gonna be a larger range, which is good because the Find My system is already pretty neat. Honestly, having watched my daughter walk through a theme park, the little dot moving. It's pretty
it
cool.
is really
Everything that
cool.
we did.
Well, the good thing about, I mean,
Yeah.
and I am no audio engineer, and I am, because I don't, don't quote me on this, but my understanding is ultra wideband is a relatively, I'm trying to think of it is not a high frequency. It is a fatter, longer
Okay.
wave that, because of that, can penetrate things better, like walls
Right.
in buildings
Your
and things
mom.
like that.
I just want to slip that in there. See if that went anywhere.
I
Uh,
you know, I opened myself up to it.
yeah, like your
That's
mom.
also what she said.
Anyway. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the let's move on to the
Take two.
iPhone. Um
But yeah,
no,
so
that
but
is
that's
that
why
is the
ultra
take,
wideband
brother. Yeah,
is why that's a cool thing. Why it's such an
right.
advancement compared to, I guess, what they were doing before. Anywho,
Anywho, we also got new iPhones, and this was actually kind of an interesting event because they only had two products to show off. They only had the watch. Well, I mean the two different watches, and then the
right.
four different iPhones. The iPhones are still coming in the same sizes and configurations as they did
Hmm.
last year. So we have a iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro,
Plus,
Ultra, Plus. That's the
I know.
superlative I was looking for. And then the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I want to really focus. First of all, the iPhone Pros are both made with titanium. That's what I was thinking of.
Right.
Um, I'm just going to give you kind of like the cliff notes, and then no pun intended. I'm going to give you the cliff notes, and then we'll kind of go back over these point by point. The titanium build for the pros. The action button has been the alert slider, I should say, has been
Right.
replaced by an action
Where
button.
have we seen that before? I'm sorry,
Right,
I have to say that.
on every rugged phone ever.
Right.
But no, like action buttons are cool. And actually, somebody brought up the idea of using the action button to do your flashlight, which is usually what I
Mhm.
do with action buttons. So I love that idea, and
No,
I will almost certainly do that. So
and
they
they
got the
certainly didn't
titanium.
claim to invent it, but yeah, it just I
No,
have to say
no,
the
no, no.
action button is one of my favorite parts about the is it on the 15 too, or is it just the 15
Yeah,
Pro?
it's on the 15
Because it's
as well.
replacing the alert slider on, but which is on all iPhones. So, okay, that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
very cool.
Yeah, and then the other things, Pro, for the Pro and the Pro Max, well, first of all, they brought the 48 megapixel sensor to the,
It's
iPhone
basically the
standard.
right, so it's the camera system, I think, from the 14 Pro and Pro Max, basically just
E
minus
essentially,
the
the
telephoto.
telephoto.
Yeah,
But, what they did was, they did the same thing that the iPhone 14 Pro does, where it crops in on the 48 megapixel
right.
sensor to the middle 24
Mhm.
megapixels, so that you can yada yada yada. You can crop in. It's a little bit of lossless zoom,
It's a pretty
which is nice.
versatile camera system, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, which is something that which is something that you want. But then with the iPhone Pro Max, and so like I have mixed feelings on this.
Mm. Are you talking about
Because
the telephoto?
on the one hand, 5x telephoto is awesome.
Mhm.
It's great, and like every flagship phone should have 5x telephoto. But they only brought it to the iPhone Pro Max because of space considerations, which I totally get. But at the same time, like I don't want the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I want the iPhone 15 Pro, but I also want 5x zoom. So I have
Right.
like a real conundrum here, because like, do I want great zoom, or do I want the size and the form factor of the iPhone 15 Pro that I have
Well,
really very much enjoyed since the 12.
one thing to consider, although it
Mhm,
certainly doesn't negate the difference in size between the Pro and the Pro Max, but
mhm.
because of the titanium build, they were able to reduce the dimensions while keeping the screen size the same.
Right,
And they've
right,
also and they were able to reduce the bezel distance between the bezel size, so the difference between the screen itself and the outer edge.
right,
So
right.
to some degree, the Max is actually a smaller phone. Now, I don't think it's
Yeah,
enough to where if you really want that Pro 6.1-inch size, that you would want
yeah,
it you would
do.
find that, that smaller difference enough, but
I
still but,
really do.
that's been the conundrum with the larger size of the Pro series for, like, the last 3
Well
or 4 generations, right?
so initially it was, and I don't remember what the big distinction was between the Pro and the Pro Max, like around the iPhone 11, around iPhone 12 neighborhood, but I remember it was one that I was willing to
It was that
sacrifice.
sensor shift thing with the 12
Maybe.
Pro Max.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it was something. It was like, "That'd be nice, but, I can live
right.
without it." Um, the other thing, the other thing we should mention about the iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Plus is they both have the dynamic island now, which was
Mhm.
exclusive to the Pro series, last year, and the only reason I thought of that is because I'm looking at the iPhone 15 Pro with the dynamic island on it. And by the way, the dynamic island, I love that thing, and
I do
I
too.
think it is just beautiful, and I'm glad that it's on all phones now, because now I hope that more app developers will take advantage
That
of
was
it.
the thing. I mean, I feel like it was an interesting and well thought out design decision by Apple, and I
But they only put it on half
definitely
their phones.
well that, and I
Probably
mean
less than half,
it was less
honestly.
impactful than it could have been because it just doesn't have a lot of support yet.
Right. But now that it's on all the phones, I think we will
Mhm.
start to see more support, which is a great thing. Anyway, getting back to the 15 Pro and the Pro Max. The camera system is very similar, if not the
Mhm.
exact same as last year's. I suspect that the claim will be something along the same lines as the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold, which is to say, yes, it's the same camera systems, but we've done a lot of software improvements and
Right.
a new ISP and all that. So you should get better photos and yada yada yada. Now they did do one thing with, and this is on both the not Pro and the Pro versions, where they talked about how when you are zoomed in to like 2x zoom, normally they're going to use quad binning, which will take the 48 megapixel shot down to 12. However, they said specifically that that is going to be a 24 megapixel
Right.
shot, and the way they're doing that is they're taking that.
It's the fusion images, right?
Yeah, they're
That are going
taking
to be
the 12
24.
megapixel and the 48 megapixel, and they're kind of like play-dohing them together
Right.
and saying, here is your 24
hmm
megapixel shot. So we're gonna have to see, like, and I believe I will be reviewing these phones. I don't actually have confirmation yet,
So
but I believe I will be reviewing these phones, and so you can bet I will be paying very close attention to the cameras when I do.
so I was actually uh interested in the fact that the iPhone 15 is getting the 16 so it's the Apple Silicon the A16 Bionic. Now,
A7. Wait,
no,
so the
the
the Pro get
15
the Pro version is getting the A17 Pro, and the 15 is getting the A16 Bionic. Yes,
and
I
the
just want to make sure
A16
that we,
the
yeah,
A16 was that in the
that
14
was in
last
the
year?
that was in the Pros last year because I
Okay,
believe,
so then that
yeah.
is typical.
Oh man,
I'm
numbers are
wondering,
good.
like, I know
So
it's
many
so confusing.
numbers. Yeah.
Now, what I'm wondering though is, and it's not something they really talked about that much, but I know that Apple has. I'm thinking it's just with the A17 Pro has moved to the 3 nanometer
Process. Yep.
manufacturing process from TSMC
Mm-hmm.
or Taiwan Silicon Manufacturing Company. I believe that's what that
MC.
actually stands for.
Yeah,
Yep. But does that mean that the 16 is still on 4 nanometer?
I
The
believe so.
16 Pro.
It almost
Okay.
certainly is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean the 16 is super fast. I mean they call the 17 Pro that's going to be in the 15 Pro and Pro Max equivalent to fast or faster than desktop Pro. What?
If anybody else is dizzy listening to this, that's okay. I am
Oh,
too.
I know. It's like it just it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. But I mean, the fact that they're calling this as fast as desktop processors now is just very funny, or not funny, fascinating to me. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's so I call it fuzzy logic with Apple because they don't, which is fine. They tend to talk in things of like in terms of like benefit to the consumer rather than like numbers. And when they do numbers,
Mhm.
it's like 10% faster than this ambiguous thing that we're putting out here. And it's
Yeah.
just
Then this other
it just
nebulous laptop that we
after a
have here.
while,
Yeah.
I start getting that like the meme of like the person going, and then the
Yeah,
like
with the
the
numbers.
algorithms start
Yeah.
going. That's how it feels
Yeah.
when they start talking about the Pro models. I'm just like, okay, but yeah,
Yeah. Well,
the sort of periscope lens in the 15 Pro Max is pretty interesting because there are no moving parts,
right, exactly.
which is
And
really cool.
yeah, and I just wanted to point out that when you mention teraflop in a conversation, I'm out. I'm clocking
I
out.
know.
Good night. I'm gonna go have some dinner. You guys talk your teraflops, and we're good to go. So yeah, and that was also like right in the middle of
hmm
the iPhone 15 presentation, which again I was editing during, so I didn't really mind missing it all that much. But anyway, so like, but there's one little elephant in the room that we haven't talked about yet, or I should say, an elephant that is no longer in the room, and that is the fact that all four iPhones have a removable SIM card. No, I'm kidding. They don't. I would love it if they did, but no, they now have USB Charlie, folks. Um,
Ah,
the
yes.
lightning, the lightning port is gone, and USB C is the big kahuna. And so, like, don't get me wrong, Lightning had some cool features to it, but it was very quickly outclassed in a lot of different ways in data speeds, charging speeds, et cetera,
hmm
by USB-C. And so now the European Union has forced Apple to put in the USB-C port. And you know what that means for me? That
Charge
means
everything with one charger.
no, that's not what that means.
Oh.
That means I can finally plug in after 3 years. I can finally plug in my iPhone to charge it because little known secret, like not a secret. I've mentioned it a few times on this show, but
I know where you're
I
going with this.
have not plugged in a lightning cable into an iPhone for as long as I have owned one since the iPhone SE, the original one that came out in 2020, and that was only because that did not have wireless charging. But every iPhone that I've had since then, which was did I first buy the 12 or the 11? I don't remember. But anyway, 11,
It was
12, 13,
11.
14. 11, 12, 13, 14, and I've had the pros and the not pros. I have not plugged in a single lightning cable into a single phone in that time. And you know what? I am damn proud of that. I am very proud of that because I knew somewhere Apple probably had some data that showed like who plugs in their phones and who uses MagSafe and who
There's just
uses
this
this.
one dot that's you on there.
There was this one outlier
Like way
that was
out there.
way up over there that said charging MagSafe 100%. Data cloud 100%. So, yeah, and that includes data transfer. So, you know what? When I was doing photo samples, and I've done photo samples for probably a dozen iPhones at this point, I uploaded them all over the cloud, and I am proud of that. Never once did I do any data transfer. So,
But you
but
know,
yeah,
who's gonna be mad
who's gonna
or
be mad?
annoyed
Who's gonna be
or
annoyed?
who's stuck in the mud still are people who own a Mac from like 3 or 4 years ago, or even I guess a couple of years ago. Or really anybody that's got I guess I should say, especially if you got like an iMac, right? So then you also got the keyboard and the mouse that came with the magic keyboard and the magic mouse because both of those charge via lightning.
Right. Well, and actually well, I think it was CNN. I mean, I'm sure a lot of outlets did that except for like Slash Gear as far as I know. But a lot of outlets already put out like pieces. These devices still charge on
Mhm.
lightning. And so it's like AirPods.
Oh yeah,
Like
AirPods too.
most of the AirPods do that. The Magic Keyboard, the Magic Mouse, old iPads. I've got an iPad
Mhm.
ninth generation over here that, and by the way, I have plugged in my iPads because there's no other way to charge them.
Right.
But yeah, like iPads ninth generation and previous, all use lightning. There's probably a couple other devices that I'm forgetting about. So don't throw away all of your lightning cables just yet. But
I'm now wondering if Tim Cook is gonna have like a moment like because so my reference point here is Tim Cook in the introduction, or I know actually it was in the closing. He made a gesture and said, "And the oh no, I guess it was in the beginning, but anyway, he went like this and said that we finally made the transition to complete Apple Silicon." And he, for all Macintoshes, and
yeah, yeah.
so I wonder if he's gonna have like that same moment. We finally made the transition to USB-C or whatever.
Yeah, we did, Mr. Hat. And so yeah, okay,
Okay.
Tim Cook talks like Mr. Garrison. Okay. Every time I see Tim Cook
Oh
talking,
no,
I keep
it's not it's not Mr. Garrison. It's the counselor.
Mr. Garrison.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Mr. Garrison.
No, Mr. Garrison is Mr. Hyatt. He talks a little different. He's like this.
Oh no, Mr. Garrison is Mr. Hat. That's who oh, you're talking about okay. You're talking about that guy.
Okay.
That's not Tim Cook. Tim Cook is definitely Mr. Garrison. I mean,
I
we'll
beg to
take
differ.
we'll take this argument off air
All right.
because
I'm just gonna
because
talk like
one
this
of
for
us
the
is
rest.
wrong, and spoiler
It's
alert,
you.
he lives in Virginia. Anyway,
Okay.
so anyway, but yeah, so all told, it was an interesting event. Not a lot of like a lot very iterative for the most part,
Sure.
but you know, the iPhone is at a point right now, you're 15 generations in, actually probably more than 15 generations, I think, if you go back and like count them up, you know, individually with all the S's and everything like that.
Mm.
You're so many generations in that this is a very, very refined product.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
making it better year over year is always going to be difficult. But I think arguably, this is one of the more exciting years. Although I think I said that last year too.
Right.
So,
So did
um,
I. I actually bought an
you know,
iPhone, so that should have told you something.
yeah, no,
Although
but
I
I mean,
bought it
like
I bought
bringing
it 1 year too early. I really wish I had USB-C.
But bringing Dynamic Island to all the phones, bringing some kind of zoom to the iPhone,
Hmm.
not Pros, is good. Bringing 5x zoom to a flagship phone is amazing, and every flagship phone should have that from now on. Just saying. Bringing, building the phone out of titanium, take it or leave it, honestly. There are a lot of color options for the iPhone 15 that we didn't talk about. Yeah, so I mean, like there were a lot of real good improvements, and I think really beneficial improvements to the customer. If you have an iPhone 14, you could probably wait, but again, I mean, this is all sight unseen. I have not put phone
Right.
hands on these phones yet. Nobody, I mean, except for the people that actually went to the event, like Mr. Michael Fisher. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations,
congratulations, Michael.
congratulations on that, Mr. Michael Fisher. Nobody has put these phones to their paces yet, so it remains to be seen. But I'm sure, like based on my experience with iPhone, I'm sure it is going to be a great experience, and I'm very excited that Apple has now joined the USB-C train, and I can plug in my phone again. So, Cliff, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this puppy up and spank it on the
Hmm.
bottom?
I'm sad that there was no one more thing, although I don't know what it would have been. I'm an old head when it comes to Apple, as you can see, the things that are behind me. And one more thing was always a great moment, although it's kind of
True.
lessened by the fact that Steve Jobs isn't here anymore. That was kind of they kind of went hand in hand. The other thing is
Yeah.
I do love with the 15 Pro and Pro Max the fact that you no longer have that really hard edge on the
Mm,
chassis. It
yeah.
actually
Yeah.
because that was one complaint that I had before I had a case on my iPhone
Hmm.
15 Pro Max was it just the way it really bit into your hand after you're holding it for a while. So
Right.
that's
Right.
really my only 2 takeaways other than what we've discussed. So
Yeah, I put cases on every single phone anyway, so that didn't really bother me. I'm glad for the action button because I honestly never
yeah,
use the alert slider. And I should mention that the action button by default will activate silent mode just like it always used to. Oh, there's one other thing. And this can be my final thing, but
sure.
there was a price increase on the
Mm,
iPhone 15 Pro Max, kind of,
yeah.
because now and I want to say this is actually a very smart move on Apple's part, and
Mhm.
I admire them a little bit for doing this. But they did bump up the price on the iPhone 15 Pro Max by making 256 gigabytes of storage the base model.
Really, they
Um,
just removed an option.
yeah, they basically just removed the smallest option. There's no longer a 128 gigabyte option, but
Mhm.
because of that, they put the starting price at the same level that the 256 gigabyte option was last
Last
year,
year. Yeah.
which is smart. I mean, it really is. And there were a lot of rumors saying that the iPhone 15 Pro Max was going to get a huge price jump, and
Mhm.
and and I said back then, and I can't recall the social media platform on which I said it, but I did say that Apple is very good at not pissing off its customers, and this was probably the smartest way to pad their bottom line, but at the same time not piss off their
Right.
customers, because
Right.
the people that are going to buy the Pro Max, they're going to be like, "Hey, I get more storage, and it's only an extra $100. That's cool. Let's do that." So yeah,
Actually, I was
uh,
gonna say the one thing that we that's they kind of I don't even wanna say they danced around it. I know sometimes with marketing, sometimes what you with the so here was that the elephant in the room, as you said before, was the fact that they switched from Lightning to USB-C, right?
mhm,
And they were basically forced to by the European Union with the ruling that they did. But
right,
I my wonder, my thought coming into the event before it actually happened was how are they going to handle this? Are they going to name USB-C something? Which I guess actually they would just call it Thunderbolt. No, well, no,
true,
because then that's a whole different thing. But
yeah,
that's this connector is just the same. But anyway,
yeah,
but they just did with which is kind of smart marketing, which is you basically just don't mention it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, they did show it on the infographic that they show at the end where it's like the Squircle boxes with the
yeah,
grid,
yeah,
and it was like USB-C with US because the thing that they put up there was the fact that it was USB-C or USB 3 as far as and then it was also USB-C on there. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, they just really didn't talk about it at all. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have any negative or positive thoughts about this about that. I just wondered how they would handle it. So that's how
Yeah.
they did it.
And by the way, one last note that I thought of because you were mentioning that graphic. The one thing that they did talk about was the fact that MagSafe is going to be compatible with Qi
She
2,
too. Yeah.
which is cool. Like I kind of thought that they would not bother to mention that, but they did mention it. So kind of cool. And I think that's just confirmation that my MagSafe obsession has been healthy all
Yes.
along. And my God, I am so looking forward to Android flagships building in Qi 2,
Oh,
just so
me
I can have
too.
MagSafe on all the things,
Mhm.
including my keyboard. Anyway, so that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to the podcast if you enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review for the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click that subscribe button and smash that bell so you can be notified of new episodes and reviews as they drop. And if you want some early access, jump onto Patreon at patreon.com/benefit of the Doud. I'd like to thank co-producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes. And speaking of the script, I really need to change your title to co-host Cliff, but it doesn't roll off the tongue nearly as well. But
Just
anyway, yeah. So anyway, co-producer, co-host Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes. But most of all, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening and for giving us the benefit of the Doud.